Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today in this video we are going to discuss about UST global interview questions that were shared by one of our subscriber friend. So in this video we'll be talking about the interview process, like number of rounds, the year of experience of our friends, and the package that was offered. So firstly, coming to the interview process, there were two rounds, like L1 and L2. Both were technical rounds, and then the offer was released. So here is the mail that we have received. So hi, thanks for your videos. That helps quite a bit. Here is my contribution. The profile for which the interview happened was senior software engineer, year of experience 4.5 years, tech stack, like what was the interview tech stack that has happened. It is based on like Java 8, Spring Boot, microservices, React JS, Redux, AWS, and Kubernetes. So let's discuss about the and then here the as the package was not asked, was not enclosed with the initial mail, so we have asked that. So here is a complete mail, complete discussion that we have done. So if you see here, so here the result was selected, won't disclose the CTC, but it's near to 20 lakhs per annum, and it took 3 days for offer letter released after the L2 round, like after completion of the second round. It took 3 days for the offer letter to get released. So now, as a token of appreciation, we are sending a 500 amount to the candidates who are contributing their interview experiences. And but our friend don't want that token, and but then asked to share to some charities. So we have shared that token to Armed Forces Battle Casualty Warfare. So let's discuss about the questions now. So coming to the first, firstly, I'll be discussing about the round one coding questions. So here is a question number one: program to filter employees and group them based on gender with Stream API. So basically, using Java 8 and group by functions, that is a new feature of Java 8 and streams. We can do this. So if you are not aware of it, how to do it, we can use it. We have this type of similar to this type of questions on our channel as well. So next question, write a program to find duplicate words in a string with their count. So this is also a decent questions. Next question, why use Spring Boot over Spring Framework? So there are certainly a lot of benefits using Spring Boot over Spring Framework. So basically Spring Boot is an extension of Spring Framework which eliminates the boilerplate configuration required for setting up a Spring application. It is an opinionated view of Spring platform which paves the way for a faster and more efficient way of development ecosystem. So basically Spring Boot is uh, helps developers in a lot of way, like a lot of boilerplate code gets reduced now, and we can focus on the development rather than setting up the environment here. Next, how to configure database. I believe it's the other part of was this in Spring Boot. So there are basically we can say five steps. So firstly, we need to add the dependency in the of the database connected to the pom.xml. Then we have to remove dependency H2 dependency from pom.xml, which is the default provided by Spring Boot. Then we need to set up our SQL database, then configure the connection to of the database, then restart, and that's it. The database connection will happen here. Then the next question, how to exclude a class from getting auto configured. So if you find that a specific auto configure classes are being applied that you don't want, you can use the exclude attribute of @enable auto configuration to disable them. So using @enable auto configuration, and in that we are passing the exclude and the class name, we can exclude a class. What is @qualifier and when to use it, how it is different from @primary. So @primary indicates that a bean should be given preferences when multiple candidates are required to auto-wire a single value dependency. And whereas @qualifier indicates specific bean should be auto-wired when there is a multiple candidates. Coming to the next question, difference between component versus bean. So component and its specializations like controller or service or repository allow for auto detection using class path scanning. If we see component class like controller, service, repository will be scanned automatically by the Spring framework using the component scan. But at the rate bean, on the other hand, can only be used to explicitly declare a single bean in a configuration class. And at the rate bean used to explicitly declare a single bean rather than letting Spring to do it automatically. It makes separate declaration of bean from the class definition. And in short, at the rate controller, at the rate service, or at the rate repository are for auto detention, and at the rate bean to create a separate bean from class. Okay, so these are the differences we can list down. Coming to the next question, are singletons bean thread safe? No, the default scope like of any bean is singleton, so there will be only one instance per context. That means all the beans having a class level variable that any thread can update it and will lead to inconsistent data. So ideally singleton beans are not thread safe. Next question, how to do one to many, many to one mapping, explain with example. So has to explain in detail or by taking up an example in your current project or in your previous project, that would be really helpful, and it will show you that you have actually have an experience on working on that thing. Difference between beanFactory and application context. So ideally application beanFactory provides basic functionality for managing and manipulating bean, often in a programmatic way. The application context provides extra functionality like message source, access to resource, event propagation to beans, loading of multiple hierarchies, context, etc. So ideally both are same. Like one is the superset of other. Next question, what is Spring Interceptor? Give example. So Spring Interceptors are used to intercept the client request and process them. Sometimes we want to intercept like a HTTP request and do some processing before handing it over to the controller handler methods. That's where Spring like a handler interceptor comes handy. So ideally example is like if you want to do some kind of auditing, like who is the user who is accessing a particular API. So in that thing, you can add this handler and you can log that who is the user who is logging, who is accessing the specific API. Next, how does the transactional works along with propagation isolation labels? So basically, propagation defines how transactions relate to each other, and isolations define the data contract between the transactions. So propagation can be required and required new. Required means code will always run a transaction, creates a new transaction or reuses one if applicable. Requires new means it will always create a new transaction. And coming to isolation, there are three types like isolation read uncommitted, isolation read committed, isolation repeatable read, isolation serializable. How to use Spring Security module? What all configurations are required for basic username path out? So you need to give a detailed explanation here. It's a big thing. So it's a you need to give a detailed explanation here. Until unless you have hands-on experience on this, I don't think anyone can answer with all the proper configurations. How to handle global exceptions? So we using at that controller advice on the class level annotation, we can handle exceptions globally. We can define any exception handle method in this class file. Difference between at the rate controller and at the rate rest controller, ideally both are both does the same thing, but at the rate rest controller is from Spring REST APIs, and it is the combination of at the rate controller plus at the rate request body. So what all different bean scopes are there, which is the default bean scope? So ideally singleton, prototype, request, session, application, and WebSocket. These are the different scopes, and singleton is the default scope. And next question, types of injection, difference between constructor and setter injection. So there are three types: constructor based injection, setter based injection, and property based injection. And coming to the difference between constructor and setter based, constructor all the parameters that are required needs to be passed, but whereas setters we don't it's not mandatory that we ought to write all the required things. What is IOC and how it is different from dependency injection? So dependency injection is the method of providing the dependencies, and inversion of control is the end result of dependency injection. IOC is a design principle where the control flow of the program is inverted. Dependency injection is one of the subset of IOC principles. Coming to the next question, how to unit test a REST controller? So using Mockito or Power Mockito, we can do this. So you can answer the same way. The last question in the first round was microservices module used in project and how to configure them: config server, Eureka server, ribbon client, historic circuit breaker, Zool API gateway. So until and unless you have real-time experience, you cannot answer this. So if at all your project is using uh, is a microservice architecture project, so if you are not aware of these things like how they are configured, you can please explore that, and you can, it will be really helpful in cracking the interviews. Oh, sorry. Then here comes the questions from L1 round based on the core Java. So first question was explain about the OOPS. So have to give an in detail explanation about all OOPS concepts, like encapsulation, polymorphism, inheritance. The next question, abstract class versus interface. Now with Java, there are hardly any differences left between these two, but still, I believe abstract class can have constructor while the interface cannot have. Can abstract class have constructor? If yes, how? Yes, we can have a constructor inside a abstract class. What is static? So the static is a keyword in Java, is used for memory management in mainly. We can apply static keyword with variables, method, blocks, and nested classes. The static keyword belongs to the class, then an instance of the class. The static can be variable, method, block, and nested class. Then when no bean found exception occurs, I believe no bean definition found exception we have. So ideally this exception is thrown when a beanFactory is asked for a bean instance for which it cannot find a definition. This may point to a non-existing bean, a non-unique bean, or manually registered singleton instance without a associated bean definition. Next question, when to use array list compared to array and linked list. So this is a basic level of question. So you can answer this. What is synchronized? What is the object level and class level? So this we have already discussed as well in the other videos. And what do you mean by reentrance in a lock? So a lock is a lock owned by the thread last successfully locking but not yet work unlocking it. A thread invoking lock will return successfully acquiring the lock when the lock is not owned by another thread. So next question is, what is volatile and transient? The volatile keyword flushes the changes directly to the memory instead of CPU cache. On the other hand, transient keyword is used during serialization. Fields that are marked as transient cannot take part in serialization and deserialization. Can we overwrite clone without implementing clonable interface? I don't think so. If you know how to, you can please do comment that. Design patterns like singleton and fractal. So these are the like most commonly used design pattern or most commonly asked interview questions on design pattern, that are singleton and factory. How to create a thread safe lazily initialize singleton class? So this can be used by making a doubly checked lock. You can do this. How to break singleton pattern? There are different ways of using reflection or using multiple threaded if it is not a double checked lock. What is cyclic and so what is cyclic barrier and countdown latch? So ideally countdown latch a synchronization aid that allows one or more threads to wait until a set of operations being performed in other threads completes. On the other hand, cyclic barrier is a synchronization aid that allows a set of threads to wait for each other to reach a common barrier point. So these were the questions from Java in the round one, and these are the questions that were asked on React JS. So what are hooks? Use effect, use state, use callback, use memo, use select. use dispatch, use reader. How to increase React app performance, why use Redux and when use it over context API. E2E Redux flow from component to action to dispatch the store. What are uncontrolled components? What are synthetic events? What do you mean by lifting the state up? What are HCOs? Give examples. So these are the questions that were asked from the React JS. Now coming to the L2, that means round 2 questions. So here is the coding questions that were asked from round 2. First question was create custom functional interface and use it in main method with lambda expression. So ideally it displays that how strong you are on Java 8 features. And next question was given a string, find words starting with A and collect them in array using streams. So again, this is based on Java 8. So we'll try to provide the solution for this as well. And next questions explain about project architecture. So this is mainly one of the mandatory interview question irrespective of the round. So you have to explain, you have to be good because this will be a decider question. If you are not good at your project, you then that will definitely show a negative impact. Explain deployment process to AWS EKS. So if you have experience on it, you have to explain the process. Common Docker commands and build up spec YAML content. Configure for code build AWS service. Next question of Java 8 features. Why default method added in interface? So like what is the advantage of it? So explain, we have to explain that without touching all the implemented classes, so we can add a new functionality. We can do it through the default methods. Next question, microservices models used in the project. So if your project is of microservice architecture, then you can answer it easily. And the last question was regular managerial round questions. Like what is, I believe this was the salary negotiation round as well. Might have asked on this because after this round, after 3 days, the offer letter was released to a candidate. So these were the questions that were asked in UST Global interview recently. So this is the mail. You can go through the entire mail. So we have already discussed. So we got this in August 2022. So sharing the same. So these are all the questions. You can halt for a moment and go through the questions that we have already shared. So finally, we have, as discussed earlier, we have contributed 400 towards the armed forces battle casualties NGO. And if you want, like, if you haven't subscribed us, please do subscribe, like, share this to other technical platforms where it can help someone. And you can provide the feedback by commenting on the session. And if you want to contribute your interview experiences, you can please reach us at the email ID that is there in the description. So it might help someone. So, and if you're wondering, like, or if you want to know, like, who are we and what we do, we are basically a bunch of software engineers who are in interviews with different companies and share our real-time interview experiences. Apart from that, we also share our real-time interview experiences of our subscriber friends who share with us. And if you're wondering what are the company names that are getting printed on your screen, so this we have already shared. You can visit our channel and take a look. It would definitely helpful because a lot of mails we receive saying that your channel is helpful and it really feels good. And that's it in this video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye for now.